The Indian High Commission here in London, targeted by vandals, a group of Khalistanis descended on the High Commission on the afternoon of Sunday. They carried Khalistan flags, they raised Khalistan slogans. Some were carrying placards demanding the freeing of Amritpal Singh. At one point, one of the protesters climbed onto the balcony here. He pulled down the Indian flag and some people below were pulling it down. He then tried to hoist a Khalistan flag right there. At that point, he was stopped by a security man from the Indian High Commission and he came down. And all this was over a period of time. They clearly took their time doing all this. There was no police present, there was no security presence. Someone clearly called the police, and at some point a few policemen did come along on motorcycles and they confronted some of these people, but not very effectively, quite evidently from video coverage that we have seen of the incident. In fact, at one point some of these protesters pushed the police back and they had to get them out of the way. The police made a statement later saying that when they arrived, most of the protesters had left. That clearly was not the case. A number were around, but the police made no move to apprehend them or to arrest them there. The police statement says that later in the day, one person was arrested someplace away from here, and that he has been arrested on suspicion of violent disorder. There is a question now whether any prosecution will follow. In the past, when we've had incidents of vandalism, there have been no instances of prosecution. Here, all of these vandals, all of these protesters were within sight of the police. The police had a good hard look at them. They knew who these people could be. And there is a serious question now whether the police follow this up with any effective action following investigation that could then lead to arrests, further arrests, and then most significantly prosecution. Because the lack of prosecution is clearly a sign to these groups that they can do what they want and get away with it. The question now is what action follows, and that will be to a great extent determined by the extent of diplomatic pressure that the Indian government can bring to bear on the British government. A strong protest has been made. The leading diplomat from the British High Commission in New Delhi was called in, and a very strong expression of protest made to the British diplomat. This is now a matter that is escalating. We've seen this action in London following from similar action at Indian embassies at several places around the world. The authorities here clearly had been alerted to such possibilities, but the protection was minimal. Now there is a question whether there will be any effective prosecution.